All right, welcome Matthew to the Biohacker Babes. Thanks
Thank
for
you guys for
joining
having
us.
me.
Yeah, we've been chatting for over a year now about this conversation, so really excited to bring it to our audience. So we're going to be getting into HTMA, hair tissue mineral analysis, which we've briefly talked about on the podcast, but you are an expert in this field, and I love the way you educate people on it. So I'm really excited to bring this to our audience. But we want to start a little bit basic. If this is new to anyone, just the basics of what is HTMA and how is that different than testing through, our typical annual blood test that most people are getting.
Yeah, they're dramatically different in my opinion. For instance, blood testing is great. There are definitely certain markers that I do still get blood work twice a year, and take a look at certain markers on there. So totally not against blood work as a whole. There's definitely some A1Cs, and there's different things we look at that kind of make sure you're kind of have your health and balance there. But as far as blood testing, it's definitely a snapshot in time, and also a lot of things can affect that blood work. I see people with stress or bad night's sleep, couple bad night's sleeps. Maybe they had a few drinks over the weekend, went to a concert. Like there's a lot of different things that can affect a blood test, in my opinion. And also, minerals are really not a good indicator specifically to read in blood, because the body's always trying to find that homeostatic balance within blood, because it's very, very important. So calcium is one that I like to bring up. Like you usually are not going to see like a calcium deficiency within blood, because you are a big old giant ball of calcium. You have bones and structure, and it'll just leach from your teeth to make sure that the calcium in the blood, because it's so important, is still at the right level. So the blood's a little skewed, in my opinion, when it comes to testing for minerals. And it's also just a snapshot of what's going on basically that day and that time. Now, HTMA, for those who've never heard of it, is hair tissue mineral analysis. And I believe it's a cellular biopsy test. I think it's an extension of the cells. And what we're reading there is basically a 3 month average or pattern, which is actually really, really critical, in my opinion, because the hair is growing at a specific rate. So when you cut off that inch to inch and a half of the hair, now you're getting an average of the length that hair has grown out, right? So that's really what we're looking for. Like, what's the trend over time? Not like what's going on today, what's going on in one time. You want to see that 3 month average and that trend, and then we do the retesting on the back end and change the protocol based on the new patterns as well. So retesting and retracing we can get into if you want, is very critical. But basically, what you do is you're going to take a piece of your hair. You like to get it closest to the base of the skull, because that'll be the newest mineral patterns. Obviously, if you were to cut like the bottom of one of your guys' hair, that's a very old mineral pattern. It's a couple of years long, right? So you want that part right by the base. And then they're going to basically turn it down into a liquid. And in the lab, there's like these $300,000 machines that they use, and they burn it. And in each heavy metal and mineral is going to basically have a specific light frequency. And then they can measure it that way, send it back into, the data, the HTMA test. And then I will read like all of your mineral patterns, the ideal levels, the ratios between them, and also get a little glimpse of maybe some heavy metals that you have in the system or that you're holding on to. And then from there, we kind of design a mineral and nutrition program. I think we know when we call it mineral balancing, some people think it's like solely just going to be like a few minerals, but a lot of the B vitamins and nutrients also play a big role. And then we like support the liver and the kidneys, because it is a detoxification program. And then also we use organotherapy, which I think a lot you guys like. I think a lot of the health community likes. So we're using those desiccated organs as support as well. So it's kind of like a complete like synergistic program based on your data.
Yeah,
That was an amazing
sure.
intro. Thank you. So much. And I love that we're getting an average because yes, blood work, well, all lab work is quite expensive. So it's hard for someone to spend money and then you're just getting a snapshot in time. And I love blood work, but I do really appreciate that we're getting more trends. We see a narrative that's being told. Can
Mhm.
you, so a big question that I get, or like eyebrows sometimes raise when I say minerals, can you discern and clarify the difference between minerals and electrolytes? Because I think there's still a lot of confusion around what are minerals? Why are they so important?
Yeah. Minerals, in my opinion, are pleiotropic. So what that means is it's basically a terminology that's stolen from or taken from like genetics research, which basically means that one bad genetic, weak link can obviously have a cascading effect on other sets of in the genome, right? And so minerals are, in my opinion, in that category because minerals elicit different effects across a broad spectrum of biological processes, whether it's structural, whether it's enzyme function, whether it's, immunological, it can be, neurotransmitter function. So you can have one mineral deficiency, which people usually have tons across the board with today's like farming system. But, for instance, calcium. Calcium is needed to properly make sure the tight junctions in the gut are held together properly. So for leaky gut, calcium is also needed for bones and teeth. That's very common what people think. Calcium is also needed for different enzymes in that help with neurotransmission. So it's like memory, recall, acetylcholine. Calcium is also very calming of a mineral, so it helps to calm down the nervous system. So you can see how they're sort of pleiotropic, as if you have one deficiency, it can present itself across a wide range of symptoms or maybe diagnoses. And that can present differently from person to person as well, because maybe you have more of a calcium deficiency in a certain area, or maybe you have more heavy metals in your bones as versus maybe having some heavy metals in like your organs. So the same heavy metal exposure or mineral deficiency and imbalance, that we could have the exact same chart, the exact same things going on, but we could have completely dramatically different symptoms. And that's why it's kind of nefarious and it's kind of confusing. So minerals are very, very important. They run so many different biological processes. I mean, you see this with magnesium. People kind of like, it's needed for 300 different enzymes. And so those enzymes aren't all one thing. They're actually a multitude of things. They're muscle spasms, they're sleep, they're, people how to get better bowel movements with them, energy production. So one mineral actually does tons of different things across the board. And that's why I think they're like the base of the when you're trying to heal and when you're trying to balance out. I think that they are the foundation, and I think they're the most important. We also obviously use those other B vitamins and nutrients and stuff too, because those are important. But I think the minerals are definitely the foundation. But a lot of people are starting to wake up, I think, around the importance of minerals. So they're starting to say, like, you can just take Shilajit or you can take Relight powder or Quinton. I don't dislike any of those supplements. I take Relight powder every day. I love Quinton when I have it. But that's really not going to move the needle on your electrolyte patterns as far as the HTMA goes. So we actually use zinc to lower sodium and raise potassium on the hair test. And on the flip side, we would use something like our supplements called NAK up, but there's others on the market. It's a zinc copper manganese complex. So the copper and the manganese are sodium synergists that'll actually help to raise sodium and lower potassium. So you start to begin to understand that just by supplementing one mineral, you have different second and third order effects that are happening within the system. And if you don't understand how all of these minerals are at play, then you basically are just kind of like shot in the dark. Like you think like, oh, zinc just looks good on paper. It's good for immunity. It's good for testosterone. It's good for, taste and smell and, all the things that zinc does. But when you're just blindly supplementing, well, then you're also affecting other, electrolyte patterns and things like that on the hair test. So I don't mind electrolyte patterns, especially if you're on a little bit of a low carb diet. We recommend a lot of saunas. So I definitely think you're sweating out quite a bit of the sodium and potassium specifically. But that's not really how we change the electrolyte patterns when we're using mineral balancing as a data point.
Mm. Okay, great clarification on that. And with the rebalancing, so I have heard some theories of like, okay, when you get your results, you're low in potassium, you're low in magnesium. Okay, just supplement with those two. Can you kind of answer to like why that theory could be missing a piece? And I actually tried that a couple years ago. I did a test and I was low in a couple of things and I supplemented with those. I felt no difference. So then I did your test a year ago, and we can get into that more, my experience. It was pretty fascinating. But yeah, why is that not the solution to just supplement what's low?
Because not every measurement on the test exactly is showing us the exact electrolyte or nutrient. So or exactly how that's actually being utilized by the body, right? So I kind of break down this very simple electrolyte pattern. I think it's pretty easy for people to understand. So one of the most common tests that I get are high calcium and high magnesium levels with a low sodium and a low potassium, right? So to kind of see how we do this is we don't look at that high calcium and high magnesium level as you should avoid those nutrients. We actually look at those as like a bio unavailable nutrient that the body's actually not utilizing properly. And we look at that as the need for supplementation for calcium and magnesium. And we want to keep it in a specific ratio, the calcium and magnesium, when it's coming in supplemental form. So there's other issues that are causing the high calcium. It's not that you have high calcium, it's actually calcification of the soft tissues where it's not supposed to be. And so people demonize calcium supplements for that reason or avoid them. And that's really not the answer to it. Calcium is very important. It's actually the most abundant mineral in all of the entire system. And so we would actually supplement calcium and magnesium with a high calcium and magnesium level. And then when we're looking at sodium specifically, it's not actually the indicator of the sodium in your diet. It's actually a measurement of aldosterone, which is a corticosteroid hormone that's secreted by the adrenal gland. So kind of scientifically, just basically giving us an adrenal reading. And so we're looking more like how well the adrenals are functioning overall when we're looking at sodium levels, not like how much sea salt's in your diet or how much salt can you keep bringing. I mean, you can bring in unlimited salt and you'll never change that sodium level on a hair test because it's more of a measurement of your adrenals. And we give other nutrients that are going to help the adrenals out. And then we see the level come up, not just from taking more sodium. Potassium also is more of a measurement of cortisol. So we're getting a good look at cortisol response from the potassium level, not necessarily like you need to go eat a bunch of dates and, all these like potassium rich foods.
Avocado.
It's like, how is your cortisol working here within the system? And they also, both sodium and potassium correlate to a couple different neurotransmitters and things that we're trying to balance out as well. So it can get a little deep in the weeds. And obviously, you can even go into that kind of breakdown that I already went, where we don't even, we use the zinc and we use the zinc, copper, manganese to affect those ratios as well. So it gets a little tricky when you start to understand how minerals are effective and how the hair test isn't exactly what it seems when you just look at it.
Yeah, it really speaks to the need for one, testing, but two, working with a practitioner to discern what story is being told, because it's not always what's presented. Could we potentially simplify and say that anything that is deficient or overly sufficient, like anything out of balance, would represent like lack of bioavailability in the cells?
It depends. Sometimes it is just low. Like you can see lots of like vegetarians where the iron's really low, and sometimes but that can be interpreted as a poor eliminator as well. So there's a term called poor eliminator that I think a lot of the replacement theory HTMA people get a little wrong. Like if iron's low, you automatically need to supplement iron, or if copper's low, you automatically need to supplement copper. Not necessarily, because it could be just what we call a poor eliminator, which means that your body's actually holding on to that element and it may actually remove itself later. It's in a bio unavailable form. So just because it's low doesn't mean, I mean, you get people with low iron who are eating like 2 pounds of beef every day. It's like clearly it's not low. It's basically these minerals will be in the body in a bio unavailable form. And when you bring the body back into balance, then it will release that excess iron, that excess copper. Manganese is another big one that's found in air pollution and stuff that a lot of people release. So it's not just like looking at your test and saying, okay, I have this low copper level, I'm going to go eat a bunch of liver and all these things. And I like to tell people you can actually have, this is the very confusing part. You can have, let's take copper, for instance. You can have a copper deficiency and a copper toxicity presenting at the exact same time simultaneously. So you can have bio unavailable copper that's in the system, not being utilized by the body properly. And there's different patterns and ways we can tell from the test whether or not you have some hidden copper toxicity symptoms that aren't based on just the copper level, while also maybe needing that copper to balance out that sodium potassium ratio at the same time. So there's a bio unavailable copper happening, which is causing all sorts of different mental issues. It can cause parasite infections, fungal infections. It's copper is very antimicrobial and antiparasitic when it is being utilized properly. And then it kind of does the reverse of that when it's in a bio unavailable form. It starts to act sort of like a heavy metal. And so we don't necessarily just focus on oh, let's take a bunch of zinc to get rid of your copper toxicity. We bring the HTMA back into balance as a whole, and then the body will begin to eliminate things as it sees fit. So we don't hyper focus on any metal or mineral. We're just always balancing out the ratios and giving the nutrients that you need based on the test. And then the body will eliminate things as it feels comfortable, which I think is a much safer way to detoxify as well. Because from my experience, although detox reactions don't feel that great, the mineral balancing system doesn't ever really release something until it knows that your body can basically go through that and eliminate that. As opposed to like chelation, where it's like whether your body's ready or not, we're just coming in and ripping things out.
Yeah, I think we definitely prefer the let's support the body to do what it's naturally designed to do
Mhm.
rather than forcing
Yeah.
something upon us. I guess chelation is needed in some ways, but I'm just a quick question about the copper. Are you testing free versus bound copper? Is there a delineation in when you're
So
testing the hair?
that's more of like the Morley Robbins type stuff. I think they measure more of that in blood. In the hair test, we kind of just get the ideal level and see where it's at, and then we'll see it excrete out a lot of times. A lot of times you have to remove a lot of the heavy metals first and bring the adrenals back online. And then the adrenals will, once they're back working more properly, they'll send those kind of ceruloplasmin and those DHEA kind of responses to kind of shuttle the excess copper out. So a lot of people have hidden copper toxicity because, for one, I think we just demonize zinc for the longest. You definitely have copper toxicity if you've been vegetarian or vegan for a long time because you have had no zinc and you've been eating copper rich foods even in small amounts. So vegetarians tend to have it worse, or vegetarians kids that I see will have a lot of copper toxicity. But from my experience, everybody releases at least some level of biounavailable copper at some point on their program because we are so zinc deficient.
Mm,
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah.
Eh,
Um, sorry, go ahead.
And the excretion is often a good thing, right? Like if you're just looking at a test and you don't know what you're looking at, you'd be like, oh, why am I releasing all of that?
Yeah.
But that's again, that's what the body is supposed to do. So we need the practitioner to be able to understand what's happening and why.
Yeah, the excretions are what we're looking for, which is like scary to some people because they're like, like when I was on Luke's show, he's like, "Or do you need glasses? Like all of the stuff that we don't want's higher. Like that means it's coming out. It wasn't there before. You didn't change your lifestyle or anything. All you changed was the supplement program, and now I have you releasing these metals or releasing this manganese, whatever it may be. So we're looking for those excretion patterns, and we want to release that stuff out of the system. If you come to me, or if you've done an HTMA with anybody and all of your heavy metals are super, super low, you're probably not releasing anything. You
Toxic.
probably don't have enough energy or adaptive reserves to eliminate much of anything. So
Mm,
some people kind of freak out when they come to me and some of the heavy metals are elevated, and I'm like, hey, at least you have some energy. At least some of them are coming out. Because if you were holding on to
yeah.
all of them, you'd feel even worse. So it's kind of counterintuitive that way. But I usually see that people handle a program a little bit easier if they don't have all the heavy metals super low.
Interesting.
Interesting. Yeah. So I actually had my test that we did last year together up, and my mercury and aluminum were really high. So going back to what you said, so that means that I'm actually excreting them at a pretty
Hmm.
good pace. Okay. But I could also be exposed to a lot of mercury and aluminum, or that could be an old pattern.
It can be both. Sometimes I obviously dive in and ask questions specifically around mercury. I'll tell you this. I don't care who you are, what wild caught stuff you're eating. If you're eating a lot of seafood, 9 times out of 10, I ask them if their mercury's elevated, and I ask them if they eat a lot of seafood. It's almost 9 times out of 10, yes. So we put people on just like Wild Planet sardines, or if they don't like those, that or anchovies or something, just to do the fish oil, just for some of that EPA and DHA. But it could sometimes I ask them questions like that. Do you have any mercury fillings? Do you eat a lot of fish? And a lot of times it's no. And that just trends back to just the amount of heavy metals that are in the environment in general. And I think it's been going on for generations here. So ever since the Industrial Revolution and the more mining and stuff that we did, we've kind of put metals into the environment, and I don't think a lot of people realize they're not biodegradable. So like all the years that we used lead in gasoline and that was just going around in the environment, Well, once the lead hits the soil, it doesn't ever degrade. It's a heavy
Oh.
hard metal it's not like a plastic that may break down or some chemical. It is not biodegradable. So it just stays in the food system until it goes into someone's body or however we do that. So the amount of metals that we put into the environment is absolutely crazy. Now, aluminum is elevated on every single hair test. I think it's from geoengineering. I think there's a lot of other aluminum, just places we just drink out of aluminum cans. And I mean, my family would cook stuff on the grill in aluminum foil growing up. I mean,
Mm.
we put aluminum in tap water as an antifungal agent, as crazy as that sounds. Like it's, so
Oh
like
my
some of
gosh.
these metals that we use, like like you'll see it in like baking soda and baking powder. They use that as like an anti-caking agent, aluminum,
Yeah.
or they
And
use it in
deodorant.
water and deodorant
Deodorant.
for antiperspirant. So like this stuff is crazy. Like we should not be using the most toxic substances on the planet for antifungals or perspirants. That's ridiculous. But we've done that for a long time, and now a lot of people are waking up more to it. But I think the geoengineering is big. They use lead iodide in that stuff. They use silver iodide in those planes. They use nanoparticles of aluminum. And I just see the most crazy amounts of aluminum in my practice that I've just ever seen. And it makes me wonder, like, some of these people it's not, I have international clients, I have rural clients, I have clients in the city. Like, I just have clients all over, and it's just across the board, the aluminum's elevated, and lead's pretty bad too. And I know they use lead iodide and geoengineering too.
Ooh,
Wow.
that's
Yeah.
crazy because we could be doing all the things. Myself, I eat very clean. I don't really eat seafood. I look at the ocean. I'm like, no, thank you. I live in front of an air purifier, but I lived in New York for a very long time where the PM 2.5 is very high. Don't have any mercury fillings, but our dad's a dentist and used to play with mercury. So,
Yeah.
we were already born with that exposure, but a very clean lifestyle.
Yeah.
And we still have to be very careful about these things. It's everywhere. And I had
Yep.
aluminum. I haven't done a hair test in a while, but on my Oligo scan, which I'd be curious to hear how that corresponds, aluminum and mercury were also high.
Can I
Yeah. That's
interject
across the
about
board.
I definitely want to hear about oligo scan because I did that a couple months before I did my HTMA. And the guy that ran my oligo scan was like, "You have one of the best scans I've ever seen. The only thing is you have a zinc deficiency, and it looks like you've had that zinc deficiency for a few years, but everything else looked great." And I was like, "Awesome." And then I did my HTMA
And
and
then
was like, "Not awesome." My mineral ratios are way off. Like Matt, you straight up were like, "Your body has been under chronic stress for many years." So it's hard for me to trust the oligo scan because that was, an A plus. And I don't feel like an A plus. I feel like what my HTMA says. So
Right.
yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, well, the HTMA never lies, in my opinion, if you know how to read it. But I use the illegal scan. I have one at the house. Obviously, I like
Okay.
getting different data points. I look at it mostly for the heavy metals because I can see different excretions that are happening. Because sometimes you don't catch it all in the hair. We're trying to get most of it out through like the urine and the feces and stuff like that because that's the more normal organs of eliminations. You open those up, you do the enemas, you do the saunas, try to get most of it out through like normal detoxification. And then if the body needs to, it uses hair, skin, and all the other, organs of elimination as well. So the hair doesn't catch all of the metals. I don't think we have a perfect heavy metal test. A lot of this stuff's in your brain and your bones. Like we would just need like biopsies of everything, of your organs. It's impossible. Maybe one day they'll figure some kind of crazy technology out that we will really be able to get a full picture. But for now, we kind of just have what we have. And so the illegal scan, I don't look at the minerals too much. And one of the main reasons I talk about this a lot is I like Dr. Paul Eck and how he actually practiced back in like the 60s, 70s up to the 90s, right? Because I think the population was much more, they were thriving. I don't know if they were thriving because there was some industrial pollution that was happening earlier than that. But if you even look at photos of people in the 70s, they weren't sitting around counting macros and doing things. They were just all skinny. They all, had more energy than we had. So
Yeah.
when he was testing these athletes and these high performers back in the 70s and getting ideal levels of mineral status on that, I think that's a much healthier population. Now, when these LIGO scans are saying it took us 5, 10 years to create these reference ranges, and it's like on who though? Like who's the healthy population that you said that this is a good zinc status for. I just really don't trust the population for some of this new technology and some of these reference ranges, but it's cool to look at, especially as far as heavy metals, because for instance, like I've never really seen cadmium be eliminated through my hair, but I've had seen it quite a few times on the illegal scan. And the other thing about illegal scan practitioners, I mean, not to knock them, I love Jeff over there. I've helped him out get on some podcasts. We kick it all the time. I like the illegal scan. There's not really a training that comes with it. Everyone's kind of interpreting it like whichever way they believe. And me and my buddy Jeff Wade have talked about this, where a lot of times they don't realize, like, just like the HTMA, if the heavy metals are kind of low, that doesn't necessarily mean they're not in there. So we can start putting them on a program, and just like the HTMA, those heavy metals can rise because they can come from deeper tissues that are not being picked up on the Oligo scan. And then once you put them on a detox program and they do another Oligo scan, you'll see a lot of those heavy metals rise. So it's the same kind of deal with HTMA, but not every Oligo scan practitioner understands that. I know Jeff Hoyt taught me that, and that kind of made sense because I do the HTMA, and it's the same thing that's going on over there. And he's tried to train a bunch of practitioners in this way of thinking, where it's like it's not just black and white what it looks like. Okay, your first scan looks good. It's kind of like you need to put people on a program and then do multiple Oligo scans, maybe one every month or every 2 months, and kind of see how everything's shifting.
That's
Okay.
the tricky thing, though, to get people to do the testing more frequently or do the retest. The retest is the hardest. People don't want to come back. They're like, I did it. What now? What?
Yeah, the retesting is critical. So, and it's interesting because the way we do mineral balancing is, I really don't know how Dr. Paulek landed on this method, but it's so bizarre how it works. You don't actually just see the potassium levels naturally get better or the calcium level come down automatically. We actually kind of rewind you back through old mineral patterns that led you into the mineral pattern that you came and seen me with. So it can kind of look worse sometimes because you might have had a stressful event or a stressful period where you were in maybe a more stressful mineral pattern. And you're going to go back through that a little bit as we kind of do the retracing and the retesting. And with that, sometimes old emotional stuff can come up because you're kind of back in that state that you were in when it occurred. But I have found that when people work through the emotional stuff that comes up on mineral balancing, they find it, more potent than psychedelics, more potent than talk therapy. It means that it's legitimately finally coming like to the surface and out of the body. And the emotional part of the program is probably harder than the physical, in my opinion.
Mm.
Yeah, that's the stuff you got to really show up and do the work. People don't want to do that.
Yeah, so it
Yeah.
starts off as a physical program, and the deeper that we go, maybe into the brain, into different regions, you start to sometimes relive or at least rethink about old patterns, and maybe you need a therapist or someone to talk to on the side, or have some modalities like breath work and meditation and stuff to kind of work through those. And also, I'm always, accessible via email because that stuff can get kind of crazy. But having someone who understands on your side and on your team that you're going through that and it can be normal is very critical as well. It's not just like, oh, I'm going to take these minerals and like feel better. You can go through some darker periods. And I think we need to embrace those sometimes. Not everybody who's kind of functioning relatively decent likes to hear that. They just want to like take some minerals and just think they're going to feel better. I would argue if you are ramping up energy production, mitochondrial function, you would actually feel worse for a certain period of time, because that would mean you would start to upregulate detox pathways that would begin to eliminate things, not just take a mitochondrial booster and I naturally feel better. I would argue that some of those are good. Like I like urolithin A, I like NAD, I take all those some of those things too. But I would argue if you're really getting into higher levels of energetic states or better mitochondrial function, which the minerals are really critical for, then you would actually feel worse for a period of time.
Mm. I
Yeah.
experienced that. You're the protocol you put me on. It was like basically about 3 times a day taking supplements. But I just started with the 2 a day and I was like, okay, I feel good. I feel good. I went up to the three. And within a few days at the 3 times a day, I was like, oh my God, I was more tired, more brain fog, like moodier. And I know you warned me of that, but I was like, that's not going to happen to me. It did. But so using the zeolite, using coffee enemas, even like cutting back to just the 2 a day really helped a lot to get through that. But it was pretty eye-opening to see what minerals can do. and I need to retest. I kind of right when I was about to retest, I found out I have sleep apnea. So it was like, okay, I got to figure out how to breathe at night. And then like, I'm going to circle back to this. But another really interesting thing on the report is the oxidation rate. So fast versus slow oxidizer. Is that the same as what you were saying with like how people excrete, or is oxidation completely different?
No. So we're looking at basically the thyroid ratio and the adrenal ratio usually to determine whether you're in slow or fast oxidation. And then from there, we actually give slow oxidizers and fast oxidizers different diets and sets of nutrients. So slow oxidizers actually thrive. I give everybody high quality animal protein. That's the base of all my diet. I think protein's critical. But then slow oxidizers, they do better with a little bit more carbohydrates, not repeat where you're just doing white sugar all day because that can deplete some minerals too because it's not natural. But starchy vegetables, maybe a little raw honey, maybe some maple syrup if you're not having blood sugar, issues. And we're basically that'll help to speed them up. They also get higher doses of B vitamins and different sets of organs on those programs as well. So a fast oxidizer is more hyperthyroid. A slow oxidizer is a little bit more hypothyroid. So they're slower, maybe a little weight gain around the stomachs, maybe some constipation, slower thinking, more brain fog, relies on stimulants. Fast oxidizers are moving faster. They're hyperthyroid. So they basically need to help slowing down. They generally are more productive. They get a lot done. They can be high achievers, entrepreneurs, and things like that. But it comes, if you don't start to slow down a little bit, it's going to come with more like anxiousness and irritability and, things like that. You may start to rely on some kind of calming things like alcohol or cannabis or, ketamine, whatever it starts to look like if it gets too severe. So we give them more calming nutrients. And we also give them a lower carbohydrate diet. So I don't really go into ketogenic diets. Some of the fast oxidizers really like ketogenic diet. So I'm not totally against it as long as they're getting a good amount of fiber in their diet to trap some of the toxins we're moving around. But I do lower the carbs in fast oxidation and I bump up the fats because the fats help to slow them down. And so I think it's interesting that we can get kind of um, a reading right on the hair test on whether or not you would do better in a higher carbohydrate diet or a lower carbohydrate diet. And then we have everybody online arguing back and forth with each other when I just think a lot of the carnivore and keto people are probably in fast oxidation, especially because a lot of them eat a lot of liver and fast oxidizers do better on higher copper too. And so I think that it's kind of like a straightforward thing to me. Like, yes, you're probably in fast oxidation. You probably love to eat liver. You get some B vitamins from there, but the copper really helps to calm you down and to raise copper will also raise calcium levels. So fast oxidizers have low calcium usually. So there's like a different things that are happening. And then the slow oxidizers are over here doing repeat and doing all these like carbohydrates. Like, dude, I feel great because they're hypothyroid and that's kind of helping with their thyroid function. So you can really just see like carbohydrate tolerance and who should be on what diet right up from the HTMA.
I think that's
So
hilarious.
cool.
We have so much diet dogma, and it's like, oh, you're probably feel good because you're listening to your body in that way. I don't do
Yeah.
well with the repeat stuff. Um, are these oxidation rates? Is that the same as like metabolic typing, the Bill Wolcott theory?
Similar. There, it gets Dr. Paul Eck stole some like a multitude of different theories. It comes from Hans Selye's stress theory. It's super old. So I
Yeah.
think that was like a
Oh,
60s or 70s thing. So he kind of, Hans Selye was giving, it was based on blood tests, I'm pretty sure, but he was giving different nutrients to people who, based on their blood tests, and was calling it like different, basically like metabolic types. And the people were doing better who had one set of blood test data versus the other. And he was getting good results from that. So Dr. Paul Eck started to do a lot of notes and taking into account like how people were feeling based on the HTMA and really finally fine tuned it down to like, okay, we can look at these two markers, the thyroid and the adrenals, determine an oxidation rate, and then give them a different set of nutrients and a different diet. And I mean, naturally, most of my clients, like when I'll tell them like, oh, hey, now you probably need to lower the carbs and add in the fats. And they're like, naturally, I've just been eating more fat lately. Like I didn't even Like I didn't even have my retest back yet, but I just started craving avocados and oils and all these things. Or people will do the vice versa where they were kind of on like a low carb keto thing. And they were like, yeah, that's funny you say that because I just started like eating carbohydrates lately because they were shifting over. Because you'll go back and forth between the oxidation rates as you balance out as well. So you'll shift. And so
Okay.
you'll kind of have to change the diet as you shift throughout the program as well.
Okay. Because I didn't think metabolic typing changed, right, Lauren? Wasn't that a fixed
What
type?
I was taught is it's more of a fixed type, but I guess it can express and kind of shift over time. But I wonder if it would come back to where you initially started. I don't know at what time, at what point in your life is an optimal time to do that test.
Yeah, I've never 100% did metabolic typing, so I'm not like a wizard with that. But I know Dr. Pollack kind of took his oxidation rates. It's kind of like a metabolic typing that you can see from HTMA, but he's based it more on Hans Selye's stress theory from back in the day.
Yeah. Interesting.
Very cool. Yeah,
Okay.
I was a slow oxidizer. It definitely made sense for me.
That
Like a
does make sense for you.
low blood
Yeah.
pressure, fatigue. Yeah. And I didn't do well on keto. I really felt terrible on keto.
Yep.
So, um, yeah, actually I had a practitioner put me on like a low fat diet years ago and I felt amazing. And that was like when keto was all the rage. And I was like, what do you mean low fat? This is not, what is this, the 90s? Yeah.
Yep. I tried keto and carnivore so many times because I was so sick. Like we didn't really tell my story, but I had Lyme and mold and a bunch of parasites and metals. I kind of had like everything going on. I was spending $20,000 out with Dr. Minkoff here in Clearwater, other genetics. I mean, I was doing all this testing because I just didn't feel good. And I tried to do keto more times than I can count because I would feel good for like 3 weeks and be like, this is amazing. And then I would just completely collapse and have like no energy. And then finally, when I got around to doing a hair test, I was in slow oxidation myself. So I'm like, okay, that makes total sense. And now that I've been in fast oxidation for a while, I definitely do feel better on a little bit of a higher fat diet. I like to work out and stuff, so I keep my carbs around like 100. I don't do keto, but it's definitely like, on the lower end with a little bit of a higher fat.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
So if someone
interesting.
is going to flux in and out of fast, slow through this process of mineral rebalancing, would you advise that they just sort of try to eat more intuitively? Like try not to stick to a regimen and go, I'm on a low fat diet. Maybe some days you are going to want more fat. I know that's really hard for people to listen to their bodies and change,
Yeah, I
but
usually just wait to get the testing. Every once in a while, you'll have some clients who are saying they intuitively started to eat a little bit more fat or a little bit more carbs, but that's why we just do the retesting every 3 months so that we can just really have the data instead of you because sometimes you're just going through detox eliminations and maybe you're killing off a parasite and you're having more cravings for carbs. I had those quite a bit. Like whenever I was like about to release a parasite, I would like want ice cream and or extra honey, just like some kind of like sweetness thing. And then I would like release a parasite the next day. It was almost like every time in the beginning of my program. So you can't
oh
trust
wow.
every kind of intuition when you're killing off all sorts of different pathogens and bugs. And because we focus on the heavy metals, but I think as you kind of just upregulate the detox pathways, the immune system, and all of that, you are going to get rid of some of these people retrace chronic sinus infections or skin issues might actually get a little bit worse before they get better and things like that. So you can listen to your body a little bit, but sometimes when you're feeling like crap, it's a little bit hard to understand it all the way, and that's why the testing is just where we just can get the data. Okay, switch the diet, or you're still in slow oxidation and stay on the carbs.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about with heavy metals and certain bugs? Like I've heard mercury and candida can be good friends. Or have you seen any correlation between certain heavy metals and bugs?
Yeah, I think basically it's not only heavy metals, it's also those like toxic coppers and things like that cause those imbalances with like candida, yeast overgrowth, SIBO, I mean yeast, I mean anything you can think of that's overgrown, especially parasites, I think are just there to feed on the heavy metals themselves. They're actually there to help. Most people want to do all these crazy parasite cleanses, but if you're not really with a really good trained practitioner doing a parasite cleanse, that is going to kill the parasite, but that parasite is feeding on tons of heavy metals, and those heavy metals can actually redistribute through the body and maybe into a place where that it actually is worse for you, like your brain.
Mhm.
So it could have been,
Oh,
in your gut
Wow.
or around your kidneys or something. Then you killed that parasite that was eating on that metal. Now it just went out into your body, and maybe it relocates to your brain or somewhere worse. So I've seen a lot of
oh,
people with parasite cleanses get worse. Some people feel a lot better. I definitely think there should be some kind of high quality binder involved in those. And if there's not, I would probably run from that practitioner because you are going to release heavy metals. But yeah, I think a lot of those imbalances with gut issues, food, I see food sensitivities go away. That's like the most common thing, which is crazy. People start to eat wheat again. They start to eat dairy again. After I eliminated a whole bunch of lead specifically, I actually was able to start eating raw dairy again. I still do A2, but even if I don't have A2, I still feel pretty good. Um, Interestingly enough, sometimes I wonder if just the raw dairy itself is pushing lead out and the calcium from the dairy is actually just pushing some of the heavy metals out. Maybe that's why you don't feel so good instead of it actually just being the fact that you can't digest the dairy. So there's a weird, because calcium does push out lead. So maybe that bioavailable calcium is actually pushing some metals out that you have in your system. And that's what's causing the bloating or some of the issues. It could just be that you can't break down the dairy because you're toxic, but food sensitivities is like probably the best thing that people like about doing the program. If they stay on it long enough, they start to be able to have food at a restaurant that's maybe not of top quality, or having a couple drinks is cool for some people because when you get super toxic, you have trouble breaking down alcohol. Zinc is actually people don't know this. You actually need like supreme zinc status to break down alcohol. So we're taking all these like probiotics and these hangover remedies, and in reality, different B vitamins and specifically zinc is needed to break down alcohol. And everybody's zinc deficient. I think it's one of the reasons we don't drink. And I used to be an addict and on drugs and all kinds of things. But I think one of the main reasons we see less alcohol is we are starting to be a little bit healthier as a society, slowly. But also, I just think people can't tolerate it. Like, I think some people
Yeah.
would enjoy 2 or 3 drinks, but they don't want to feel like crap for 3 days. But your body should be able to
Yeah.
break down 2 or 3 drinks and just be social. It's not you're going to do it every night. You're just trying to do it here and there. But most people avoid it because they simply can't break it down, and the juice isn't worth the squeeze, basically.
And then
Yeah.
people get mad. They go to Europe. Everyone's drinking over there till late into the morning, but they don't have the glyphosate, all the toxins. They don't have the bioengineering that we have. Like we're really burdened. And so
Yeah.
alcohol or not, and I think their alcohol is also different. It's processed differently.
Yeah,
It's
a
so
lot's
much more
going
of a
on.
burden.
I have a lot of international. We have a tons of European clients. They're still loaded with metals for sure. Maybe I don't have a bunch of clients because usually they work with practitioners that are overseas. But one of my business partners at Valence he lives in the UK. He was riddled with all sorts of EMF sensitivity. It took him like 5 years in the
Mm,
program to feel better. He was
wow.
going through a lot. And that was like 10 years ago. But so they're still definitely toxic, but they have definitely way more regulations on the food system that probably at least helps. And back to the zinc is basically there's a war on zinc, in my opinion. For one, I think this might be one of the reasons they demonized red meat for the longest because they didn't want us to have good zinc status because it's so beneficial in the body. But also, heavy metals themselves deplete zinc pretty rapidly. So if you think that you're just getting enough zinc from red meat, it took me like 4 years of supplementing zinc on top of my regenerative red meat every day to actually have a pretty good zinc status. Was it my one mentor, Dr. Robert Seelig? He talks about this mercurial diuretic study back from the 40s because we used to use some of these heavy metals in medicine, which is crazy. Like they would give it mercury as a diuretic. And what they noticed, they did the testing, and there was 1,000 ions of zinc for every ion of mercury that was being eliminated through the urine through the mercurial diuretic. So that mercury coming in as a mercurial diuretic was just depleting zinc status at a rapid rate. So think about when you just have, mercury fillings in and that stuff's in your brain. So even if it's not, each ion's not depleting 1,000 ions, even if it's depleting 10, 20, it's still coming out rapidly. And then the metals are in there daily. And so we start to see how these heavy metals and these other environmental stressors, they cause that increased need for nutrition on top of just a diet. I sincerely do not believe we can just eat healthy in 2025 without taking supplements and just be healthy. It's a rare breed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we agree with that.
I don't think people want to hear that. They think they can just exercise and eat well and call it a day, but that's not the world we're living in. And so interesting what you were saying about the alcohol topic, because Lauren and I were just talking about how alcohol consumption is at an all-time low, which is really fascinating. And I thought the same thing. I think people just feel like crap every day. So why are they going to go drink a poison that makes them feel even worse? Like, I don't
Yeah.
want to do that.
You
So
know, we're falling in love with chatbots, and we also have terrible nutrient status. I think there's like a combo of technology where kids are kind of a little bit more socially isolated. Like back when
yeah,
I grew up, you didn't have anything like AI or social media, so you had to go hang out with friends. There wasn't anything else you could do. You could play video games, but it got boring after a while because they weren't these
yeah,
VR. You know, all the stuff they have nowadays can make you feel like you're connected to something while you just sit at home, which I think is probably not good. You should still find some community. But also, I do think a lot of it comes down to the toxicity, the nutrition. The liver's already overburdened. So now you're adding in this other burden. And that's how I got at a point because I was like, I like quit drinking for the longest because I was like a straight, like on drugs and drinking. So I took had long sobriety, almost never drank. But then obviously I was like, okay, I trust myself now. I've done a lot of work on myself. Like I don't mind having a couple cocktails at dinner over a nice steak or whatever. But I would just feel awful. Like even off of just like cocktails, it was ridiculous. So I just like it's not even worth it. So then you start to just be like the only person who's not drinking when you're hanging out with people. And I wasn't trying to go like get wasted or anything. I was just like trying to be social. And yeah, just and the more I do mineral balancing, the more if I have like a couple glasses of wine or a couple cocktails, I really feel almost nothing. It's pretty crazy.
That's a good
wow,
goal. That's motivation.
yeah,
Be able to enjoy a cocktail with dinner, less repercussions. I like that.
Mhm.
Yeah. You mentioned
yeah,
a little bit about your story dealing with Lyme and parasites. So I'm sure people are wondering, like, did you detox all of those? Because you go online and people are like, you got to kill the parasites, you got to
Yeah.
kill this. But I think we started this conversation about teaching the body or just upregulating normal detoxification. I'm curious, did you really just focus on the mineral balancing and just supporting detox pathways?
That's what moved the needle the most. But I did do, like I said, I did that $20,000 protocol for Lyme. And this was after I had already been seen, like I seen one doctor and he said I had HPA axis dysfunction and adrenal fatigue. And I did his thing for like a year and it was super expensive even over there. He kind of looking back, that was like my first functional medicine doctor. I'm like, okay, he was kind of just like shilling products a little bit. I really would, now that I have a lot more knowledge, I would have got a bad vibe from him probably, but it was like my first functional doctor I'd ever seen. And he did the 24-hour saliva test. He did some functional tests. They were good to see. My cortisol was flatlined. I had no cortisol through the entire day, which explains
mm,
like complete burnout. But I did years of partying and drugs. Like I did it, a lot of it to myself, but I also had mercury fillings and a lot of health issues growing up. So I mean, it was just like a compounding over the years, and I was bound to collapse at some point. But and then I did the Lyme treatment. My wife seemed to think I got a little bit better from that. I still felt like I was half dead. But that was like ozone, PMF, bunch of IVs, 40 different supplements. He had me on peptides. He had me on amino acids. He had all this stuff that was going on. And he had all like muscle tested me for it and did all this fancy lab work and everything. And he claimed that I killed off the Lyme and the Epstein-Barr and the Babesia. So maybe I did kind of get rid of some of those. I still just felt like I had, short-term memory loss. I could not work out. I had brain fog all the time. And I was just like, I can't keep living like this. And so I started to play around with some of like the Morley Robbins stuff. That's kind of who kind of opened my eyes to the minerals because he's super intelligent and charismatic. And I was like, wow, this sounds crazy. Like maybe copper and magnesium's all you need. And I did his program, not directly with him, but and I just didn't feel that much better. And then I got into another like high copper protocol, which was kind of like a renegade, no testing. We were just taking like high amounts of copper with high amounts of zinc and a bunch of other nutrients. And there was like this big Facebook group that had 30,000 people in it. But we were kind of all learning about different forms of minerals in there and how, all the benefits of zinc and all the benefits of these other minerals outside of just copper and magnesium. So then I started to think like, okay, it's if there's no hierarchy on minerals here. Like they're all important. And if you have deficiencies or imbalances in any of them, then you're going to have problems within the physiology. And so then I finally got introduced to like the Dr. Paul Eck people. And then the way that program, and that was even before we created Valence, even on the old Dr. Paul Eck supplements that we reformulated, I had gotten, released more parasites, more just kind of nasty stuff that looked like candida and stuff would come out in the enemas. Like there was more coming out of me through the HTMA than any of those other kind of systems or
wow,
doctors that I seen like combined. And so then we reformulated the supplements and they're even stronger. And so they work even better. And it's just been kind of wild.
wow. Thanks for sharing your story. I didn't realize you had been through so
Yeah.
much of that. Yeah. But
Yeah,
all
I'm
part of the
really more of a
journey, and
gym
you've
bro,
learned.
honestly. I really like didn't care about functional health. I just like used to lift all the time and I would party and I would just like do these bodybuilder type of I never like did a show, but like I'm way more of a gym bro kind of guy. Like we're kind of the early biohackers anyways, playing with different compounds and stuff
Yeah.
that we'd find online and stuff. That's way more like my area where I like to be compared to I just got so sick that I had to like figure this like functional health, like nutrient mineral piece out. I kind of got thrown into it because I was so sick, but had it be me, I'd just be working out somewhere like kind of gym bro life.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's usually how it goes. You're forced into it. You're forced into finding some answers for yourself. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, thank you for going for that through that because you're helping a lot of people. So
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it was God's plan overall. Yeah.
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 Quick question. What are your thoughts on humic acid and fulvic acid? Because those are kind of gaining a lot of popularity right now.
Yeah, we've added small doses of like purified shilajit powder to help with like mineral absorption and stuff like that, and
Okay.
our like slow ox, and I think we even might have put it in the new fast ox. So like, there's definitely some area where I think that they help with actually like mineral absorption. But when you're
Okay.
talking about like shilajit or humic and fulvic, these products are never going to give you like 50 or 75 milligrams of zinc that I might have you on, or they're never going to give you like 600 milligrams of calcium. Like that's not in Shilajit. There's like these small like trace minerals in there. And Shilajit, I think a lot of people feel better on. Maybe it's the minerals, but there's also like direct like compounds in Shilajit that help with like mood function. And it's kind of like almost like a nootropic to an extent. So there's
Hmm.
different compounds in Shilajit that are helping people feel better outside of minerals. And the humic
Okay.
and fulvic, there's some good data around that, and maybe mineral helps with some absorption of minerals, but you're never going to get like the dosage that you would get from like HTMA.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, because I've taken them and I don't ever feel anything, but I'm like, hopefully it's just kind of low level doing something. And Shilajit, I have a new jar sitting on my kitchen counter, and it smells so bad. I don't know.
You got to do the
So,
tablets with Shilajit, in my opinion, and just knock them back.
oh, okay, okay.
Yeah,
All
Black
right.
Lotus makes them, Mito Life makes them. Shameless plug, I know both of the owners there, but yeah, really clean, just Shilajit tablets, and you just take them as like a pill. That's
I
the
like
only way to
that.
do Shilajit, in my opinion.
Okay, yeah, this is
Uh,
like the paste that you're
Yeah,
supposed to
oh,
like
no.
just
put.
straight resin. Yeah, no. Symbiotica makes it good. They compounded it with some other, I don't know what else is in there, some kind of squeeze it into your mouth. It's not terrible. Definitely tastes better. Um,
Okay.
I'm curious about some mental health and mood stuff. Can I ask another question, Renee? Are we at time?
Yeah, go.
One
I think
more.
we're okay. Go for it.
Mood and mental health. I'm just seeing more and more awareness, of course, around mental health, but more and more people that are diagnosed or even self-diagnosing with like ADD, ADHD. And I think we're talking so much about like the socio-behavioral components, less about the physiology. Curious, in your opinion, what are you seeing with mineral status and how much of that can we really interact with from a mineral standpoint?
Yeah, minerals regulate neurotransmitters like create like there's unlimited research around calcium, zinc, I mean chromium. There's so many of them that regulate different neurotransmitter function for sure. And there's also tons of research that will show how heavy metals will affect those. For instance, like mercury can bind to your NMDA receptors, and that'll block your ability to uptake glutamate into GABA. And so
Mm,
when when something like that happens, then obviously you're in a more stressed out state because you don't have that calming neurotransmitter as GABA. You're not going to turn your glutamate from your diet into GABA. So then you probably might reach for alcohol because that's a good way to get
mm,
GABA, right? So people might not even know that they have the toxicities and they're reaching for, substances that are going to kind of help balance them out. And I think that's another reason why some people might like uppers and some people like downers. You always kind of wonder like why. Like I was in the drug scene and festivals. I'm like, everyone kind of likes different things. And then the more I get into it, I'm like, yeah, probably different neurochemistry is reacts to that a little bit differently depending on your imbalances. And so you have a lot of mental issues that happen when you have heavy metals in there. Aluminum's pretty critical for like brain just processing power in general. Like we see it in Alzheimer's, we see it in dementia, we see it in autism, we see it in ADHD and even OCD. Copper and manganese are really, really big. Like a lot of people don't even feel like they got over the hump of the program until they do eliminate quite a bit of copper. because a lot of that's the gut stuff that happens, but then obviously your gut brain connection is really, really critical. And you can have, high amounts of biounavailable copper and manganese are, they're linked to like things such as like schizophrenia. So it's like you can actually get into some severe states if you have too much of this imbalance in these toxins in your body, where you can have like disorders, basically like maybe multiple personality disorder. People talk about doing the program and kind of coming out of some of these like psychiatrical, like clinical type of diagnoses just from getting like the heavy metals and the copper and the manganese and stuff out. So kids, you see it with the best. It's hard when someone might have like a psychological disorder to tell them to like do the diet, do the supplements, do the enema. Like they're already like not feeling great, and they might even be like slightly bipolar, or it's kind of more of a challenge once it gets to a certain degree. But that's why I like to start with the kids, honestly. The kids respond so well. The kids with autism do well. Kids with OCD or ADHD and learning or speech issues, all of that stuff comes back to the mineral system and the heavy metals that are in the taking place of those minerals and causing issues. And I mean, I post stuff on my story all the time about kids. It's crazy how quickly the kids respond. They just have less of that congestion, and they really don't even need the binders. They only need like 3, 4 supplements in really small doses. And you see kids with skin issues, mental issues, behavioral issues. Picky eaters, I think, really goes back to a zinc deficiency as well, because zinc is really, really needed for like taste and smell. And so, I mean, some of that is just people just feed their, we're in America. So some people are just like, here's your chicken nuggets. And if you give them that for a couple of years, it's going to be hard to say, all right, now we're switching to broccoli. Like that's a tough,
Yeah.
so you got to kind of start early. But some kids, even when the parents are like kind of these crunchy moms that I get, I mean, they're not even vaccinated. They don't eat processed foods, and the kids are still really picky. Once they get on mineral balancing and they start to get that zinc status up and get some of these heavy metals out of the way, they're like, oh, well, he started eating broccoli. He started eating this. He can eat
Wow.
dairy now. He used to have to have an inhaler, he's off his inhaler. And now he can eat dairy and not have these like basically these allergic kind of reactions to them. So, it's tricky. You can't say you cured anything out here in the weird world of medicine, but I think when you bring the body back into balance and let it do its thing, then it's really the body who's doing the most of the heavy lifting. You just need the right inputs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Love
So
that.
well said. So well said. Yeah, the human body is amazing, but yeah, we're not giving it the input. I love that. Amazing. And you have some awesome testimonials that you share on your Instagram. I see like people, taking different supplements or working with you. Like the testimonials are just amazing. So
Yeah,
very cool to
ever since
see.
we done the valence supplements, it's been crazy. I mean, like I said, we did. I still think that even the Endomet supplements we used to use that are Dr. Paul X formulations, they did really well, just because of the ratios and the specific nutrients and the way we did the diet and the enemas. But once we upgraded it to the more like bioavailable forms with the Valence Nutraceuticals, the company I created, and did like better bioflow agents, supported the kidneys with some herbs and some different things, we really started to see like tremendous change like quickly. It used to take people like over a year sometimes to detox lead with the old Dr. Paul X supplements, and now we're seeing it in like on the first retest a lot of times. So it's definitely working faster. You do have to have a trained practitioner who knows how to lower the dose for you, because it is working so much faster.
Mm.
So we do start people kind of like what you did. I'll give you 3 doses a day, but I'm like, you can just try one in the morning for a minute. Then if that feels good for a week or two, then go to the second dose. And also we can tweak things. Sometimes people are kind of sensitive to kelp, and I'll pull that out for a little bit and then put it back in later. So there's like ways to tweak it for sure, so that you're not just getting hammered 24/7. But you do have to have a level of kind of pushing through, which isn't always fun for people.
Yeah.
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 I think I appreciated that you warned me like, hey, you might need a little bit of extra sleep, be kind to yourself. I think that's good to know that ahead of time.
I try not to sugarcoat it. I was sicker than most of my clients I even take care of. Obviously, I wasn't spending 20 grand out with Dr. Minkoff because I felt great. I was giving
Yeah.
like maxing out credit cards and crap, trying to get healthy. So I was like very, very sick, but my program was tough for a long time. And so I don't try to like act, but then you have these like people hit me up like, you always talk about all the detox symptoms, but I just did the program for 6 months and felt great. So you get those. My wife was actually one of those. I'm like, lucky you. She was just have like,
Mm.
take some naps here and there, a few enemas here and there, and then like for after about 6, 8 months, she was pretty good. A couple slight detox reactions just here and there, but lucky her. That's not the norm. I would say most
Yeah.
people kind of got to go through it a little bit, and we pull off the supplements, take breaks, do more enemas. There's ways to work around it, but you will go through some of those physical symptoms and also some of the emotional stuff as well.
Yeah. Thanks for
Great.
saying that. I think it's so important because our natural inclination is to go, I feel worse. It's not working or it's hurting me. And it's just
Yeah.
honoring the body's process, what should
I
happen.
mean, some of these metals have been
Yeah.
in your brain since you were born. So do you think that like
Yeah.
naturally when we release that, what do you think is going to happen? That your body's going to kind of go into a little bit of a panic, like a little bit of, or
Yeah.
when we remove that metal, now the immune system starts to work better. Maybe it wasn't attacking this a sinus infection. Like you may think like, oh, I used to get sinus infections, now I don't get them anymore. Well, maybe your immune system just got so down regulated that it couldn't even fight the sinus infection. It's just living in there. So you start to have to blow your nose for a couple of days, or you're coughing. Some of these metals are in your lungs. So you're kind of hacking up mucus sometimes. And, it really just depends on
Wow.
where the metals are located in the system and which ones are being released. So like the same heavy metal release can look different symptoms wise from each one of us three, because mine could be coming from the lungs, yours could be coming from the brain, someone's could be coming from the kidney. So they're just stored in all these crazy places. And that's like the nefarious part of heavy metals, is like we can all have kind of the same exposure, but then we can have these different diagnoses. And that was like the big thing when I was looking up all of these like I wouldn't really let anyone diagnose me with autoimmune or whatever until I finally got a Lyme, because I was like, all right, I'm so dead. But I was like, all of these have the same symptoms. Like you would just look and there's like these list of symptoms for this diagnosis, that diagnosis, and I'm like, they're all the same. You have brain
Yeah.
fog, you have fatigue,
Yeah.
you have gut issues. Like they're all pretty much the same with like a couple like outliers here. And that's where I'm like, okay, I don't really even attach to diagnoses anymore. I just get as many of the toxins out of the system as possible, and usually people feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're toxic and we can't make energy. It is like simple. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We overcomplicate it, I think, in the functional health space when it's the HTMA is complicated itself. It took me a while to wrap my head around it, but then you start to just like break it down to like you just need more energy. Minerals and nutrients create energy, and you need to remove the things that are shutting down energy production, which are the heavy metals are the worst. They're definitely the most toxic. There's no like safe amount. Like none of these metals like should be in your body at all. We're always going to have them, even if you're detoxing forever, because you're going to keep getting exposed. But
Yeah.
the as low as you can get them would be best.
Mhm.
And then obviously we add in the glyphosates and the plastics and everything else, and it's kind of like a perfect storm.
Ah, so many
Awesome.
things. So many things. Yeah. We'll love to ask you a million more questions, but we're going to start to wrap up. Can you tell our audience where they can find more of you, where they can access Valence and the testing?
Yeah. So my website is integrativethoughts.com. That's also the name of my podcast. I might be one of the only people who's got a tons of like HTMA shows. I don't know any other HTMA practitioners that also have a podcast. So I think there's people enjoy that, kind of learning more about the program. So I have tons of different HTMA and heavy metal podcast on integrative thoughts. I also interview a lot of the same people you guys do, because if you only talk about mineral balancing, the show would be kind of boring. So there's a lot of other stuff you can listen to there, but there are a bunch of mineral balancing and heavy metal stuff there. And then Valence is the supplement company that I created. We've reformulated Dr. Paul Eck's original formulas to make them more bioavailable, to make more active forms of B vitamins. We've added some mitochondrial boosters, made all of the organs like grass fed and things like that, that I think a lot of the community kind of pays more attention to than when Dr. Paul Eck was practicing in the 90s. So kind of made them as clean as possible, got rid of all the excipients. We generally recommend those based on the HTMA. You can just take our BioFlow Plus if you like TUDCA and you like a kind of a BioFlow agent, or if you think your kidneys are a little toxic and you want a kidney support, you can take the Shin 4. So some people are just taking the zinc or whatever if they like zinc. We obviously like to base it on a hair test, but you can check us out there. We'll have more products that are a little bit universal. We're working on a paraxanthine and ketone product right now, which I think will be cool. So we'll have more like universal products over the next few years, because we've basically got the whole mineral balancing line out besides a couple that are going to be done in the next couple months. And then we're going to move more into like biohackery type stuff probably. But that ketone one and that paraxanthine one I'm excited for, which will be hopefully done next year. It's going to be a powder that has to taste right. So it's going to be a back and forth with the sample. Not as easy as just putting out some pills.
Ooh,
Yeah.
those are tough compounds to make tasty.
Yeah, so that'll
I'm
be
drinking paraxanthine right now, but adding ketones, that's tough.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
both, you got to use bitter blockers, and we might even have to put like some allulose in there when I'm more of a monk fruit guy, but if we really need the allulose to kind of cover the taste, we might have to do that. So we're about to get our first sample next week and do some tweaking back and forth from there.
Cool. That's
Cool.
exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep us
Mhm.
posted on that.
Yeah, I can send you guys over a bag for sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Awesome.
We're paraxanthine junkies. So
Oh, I'm every
Truly,
day.
I'm like,
every day.
needed.
Every
I just
day.
take it ever since I got started taking paraxanthine. I'm like, we need a product with paraxanthine in it. And
It's so
so,
good.
Mhm.
I'm like,
yeah,
I hate coffee, the way coffee makes me feel now that I've experienced paraxanthine. It's just night and
yeah.
day.
Yeah.
There's I believe is also some liver issues and congestion and things that cause people to have a little bit more anxiety and stuff when they do drink caffeine
Mhm.
as well. And there's mold and other issues, but I think more so is like the body's already maybe in a stressed out state, or maybe their liver's not processing it that well, and it's already kind of backed up and sluggish. So I think the healthier you get, the more you can tolerate a little bit of caffeine. So I still have my coffee in the
Mm,
morning, but I do the paraxanthine in the afternoon.
okay. Yeah, that's
Nice.
what I've been doing. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
That's great. That no,
cool.
you can take that stuff kind of late and go to bed. It's pretty remarkable. Like that's the best part for me. I could like
Yeah.
take it at 5 p.m. and like
Same.
be kind of social and go to bed at a completely normal hour with no effects on sleep. That's
Yeah.
Same.
crazy.
Same. But coffee would be 1 o'clock.
Oh yeah,
I'm done.
I might
Yeah.
go to bed, but I'm not going to sleep that
Not
well.
gonna
But with
stay
paraxanthine,
asleep. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
go straight to sleep. It's like probably the one of the best compounds that's ever been created ever.
Yeah. Yeah. Just
That's
to
a
be able
big
to go
statement.
out and
Yeah.
socialize is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's wrap up with one final question. So, other than people coming to get the test, the HTMA test, what would one piece of advice be, something they could start doing today to optimize their health?
Um. Wow. Besides the HTMA test, big fan of honestly just sunlight and learning, trying to circadian rhythm. And I also, to be honest, I think it's not spoke about. It's spoke about a little bit, but I found one of the best things that's helped me with my detox program, and that's relatively cheap, is literally grounding or like sleeping grounded. Like I know a lot of there's a back and forth. I find that if I plug in a grounding mat on the bed into a dirty electricity filter, that's probably one of the biggest changes that I've found for just like a couple $100 and you never have to buy it again. So I like doing circadian rhythm because we are playing with hormones and stuff with the minerals because the minerals affect the enzyme binding sites, which actually are what helps the hormones. So that's why people have better periods and their hormones start to balance out, or their testosterone goes up when you start to give them the minerals. But also, if you're just staying up till 3 in the morning and you're looking at blue screens and your circadian rhythm's jacked, well, now you're kind of obviously stopping progress. So I think you need to get in tune with nature, do some grounding. But I really recommend sleeping on a grounding mat. It's probably the cheapest thing that I've done for my health, and it's great.
Do you have
Cool.
a favorite
Love that.
brand?
There are Mito
There's a
Life
couple
makes it like a cotton one. I bought mine so long
Okay.
ago that I have like the Clint Ober. He was like the guy that did the documentary about grounding. What's his like ultimate longevity or something? So I still have that one because I just bought it so long ago. I might switch over to one that's more of like an organic cotton sheet, which like I think Mito Life makes one of those now. And there's a few other brands where because the ultimate longevity is kind of like a black carbon underneath, and I don't know if that's like trapping
Mm.
heat or anything like that. I would probably rather it be like a if I were to buy one today, I'd probably buy it from Mito Life, Matt Blackburn's
Okay.
company.
Nice.
Great.
Mhm.
Cool.
All right. Well,
Well,
thanks,
thank
Matt, for
you.
sharing
Thank
all
you
this.
guys.
It's been awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
And thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll see you next time.